why. I mean, particularly the Unnatural Networker, the first book I wrote. You know, we're talking about building relationships. My job within the business, there were two of us running the business, myself and my business partner. And if I say my business partner, Tim, he did all, I'm going to say he did all the work. You know, if there was any spreadsheets to do or contracts to write or any, you know, proper work to do, he'd do it. You know, definitely not my part of the business. And my role was to be the public face and to go out and, you know, get to know people. And in an organization with thousands and thousands of members, obviously you can't get to know everyone individually. It's just not physically possible. So to become or to be this public face, I had to find ways of me to do that. Now, video helped me do that. There were lots of, you know, doing Facebook Lives helped me do that. But one of the key things was becoming published. And I definitely ummed and ahed with it for a long time. I'm not gonna lie about it. It wasn't something. I don't think it was one of my life goals to be a published author. Honestly, that wasn't something that I was desperate to do. But it became clear, and so many people were saying to me, "You've got to do this. You've got to do this. You've got to do this." And yeah, it became really important because it allowed me to get that reach. I think that's really important. It allowed me to build my credibility with the organization, but crucially when it came to the relationship side, I think that was the key. Initially, the Unnatural Network, it was going to be about networking, obviously, but it was going to be a networking 101, but I had to give it an angle. I couldn't just be, this is how you network, this is how you do it, and that would be boring. So I had to have that angle. And then when I realized, actually, I'm an unnatural networker, I whisper it, run a networking organization, networking expert, but quite happily, I'd avoid networking if I could. Then I realized the connection, the relationship I could build with people, because there's so many other unnatural networkers. I know there are some people who love networking. I call them weirdos, but you know, that's another whole story. No, there's so many people who don't feel comfortable when networking or find it hard or have had poor experience in the past. So to allow me, to get the reach and get the credibility, but crucially, to build relationships with 12,000 people, yeah, you can't do that, obviously, but the book really allowed me having a book really allowed me to do so. So my why became, as much as anything, yeah, initially it started, yeah, this is part of your job description. You've got to do this because this is my role in the business, as opposed to having to do all the contracts and the spreadsheets, which I would quite happily avoid. It went from that to being something much bigger, to creating, inspiring perhaps a movement for unnatural networkers to go and thrive, because so many unnatural networkers think, look, I can't network. I'm not going to be as good at it as someone who naturally wants to go and talk to people. So yeah, BNI definitely played a big role in why obviously it's played a big role in my career, but it's played a big role in why I wanted to start writing. And now I've got the bug for it. So yeah, I'll probably carry on doing it. And I've done more, as Sue said. The second one's out, and I'm now working on a third. So you know, there's definitely more where that came from. So yeah, it's been a big part of what I've done, and helping to build relationships particularly.
And so you really used the book in that first book in a way. I mean, it was a great way for you to reach out to all those people, I guess. So 12,000 people you had as members at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, there was definitely, it creates a number of things. Number one, it provides that credibility that there's something there. That's what a book just definitely does. I mean, it's the ultimate business card, if you like, because, and forgive me, I don't know the people who are on who's written books, who hasn't. Are you thinking of writing books, or are you just really interested in books? I don't know. I mean, I don't know where you're all at. But yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate business card in that sense. But yeah, at the same time, it just gave opportunity to go in. I mean, we're a franchise business, so I would just go in regularly to different regions, different parts of the country, and they wanted to hear about, you know, they wanted me to connect and help other unnatural networkers. That's where it became really, really powerful. And that's having the angle on it. As I say, it is a networking 101, but honestly, I mean, that's what it is if you look at it in you know, a sort of objective sense. But it's having the angle that made it powerful, and actually also made it easier to write as well. But that's I guess another story. But yeah, that connection with the BNI's membership, or a lot of BNI's membership, was very powerful.
I think it's really interesting, isn't it, that whole thing of kind of, as you your recognition of yourself as, okay, this is your business, but actually you yourself realized you are an unnatural networker. You found it difficult and you wrote the book about that. So there's kind of something around this whole thing of, people will find it easier to find you likable, to create a relationship with you, even if they don't know you, if they can hear your authentic voice. And that angle that you picked came from your experience.
Yeah, definitely. That made it so much easier. I mean, people often ask me how long it took me to write the case with both books. The second book was definitely interrupted a bit with the pandemic, so that took longer for different reasons. But the first book, I'm going to say the first 6 months or so, I was faffing about getting nothing done, quite honestly. I'm just being brutal with myself. I think, yes, I'm going to write something. But then, I don't know if you can have writer's block when you haven't actually written anything, because I hadn't written anything at that point. But once I'd got that angle, unnatural network, let's look at everything from the point of view of an unnatural, it flowed. It was so quick. I mean, the actual writing, I always fitted it around the day job, to be honest. So I'd never got to a point where I'd say, right, I'm going to block out the next week to write. I never did that. There wasn't the time in the diary to do that. So I'd always fit in an hour here or an hour there or a train journey here or whatever.
Yeah. And
so I'd have odd snippets to do. But I found it would just flow once I had the angle to write on, and clearly it resonated because it's of the success it's had. People ask me how many copies I've sold. I'll be honest, I don't know. I really should know probably, but it's in excess of 10,000. I know that from just the orders I've had, and then people say, "Oh, well, that's pretty good." So I go with that. So I didn't do it to make sales. That's clear. It was more about the reach and the credibility and that chance to connect with the audience.
Yeah, fantastic. So saying goodbye to BNI after 12, 14 years, did you say?
13 years as national director, 18 years in total. So yeah.
A long time. It's a
long... BNI, I'm an adult in BNI, which is
yeah.
So yeah, after a long time.
And what's coming next?
Well, that's a good question. I definitely plan to take some time to consider where I go next. I know one thing I'll do. I have now built up a bit of a, I'm not going to say a full client base, but I've definitely got an audience who like my content. Unnatural networkers, particularly on professional services for me. I take solicitors as an example. I'm just using this very broadly. Why do most people become solicitors? You can read the same for insurance or accountants or other professional services. Why do they become solicitors? Well, they like the detail, they like the focus, but then they get into their firm, they're told, well, if you want to move up the firm, if you want to become partner, well, you've got to go out and network, and that's where they worry about it. Or you see the typical thing that all of you will have seen when you attend a networking meeting from time to time. You'll see 4 solicitors from the same firm talking to each other and not talking to anyone else. I can see the nods around the room. You've seen that as well. So they're doing networking to tick the box and say they've done it, but they're not getting anything from it. So yeah, they're the sorts of people I know there's an audience for, and I'm keen to help. But I don't think I'm going to be doing that 100% of my time. I've got more writing to do. I've got Ironmans to compete in. I've got school governors that I want to be. I'll have other projects as well. So I'm going to take some time to work out exactly where I go. As I said, there's a third book in the offing as well.
And I guess and you've kind of, I think what's really great about what you've done and what really helps you, and I think will continue to help you as you kind of continue on this journey of making more great relationships with people, is you kind of built a bit of a sub-brand, Charlie, haven't you, really? With this was, your BNI days have produced the Unnatural Networker and Unnatural Promoter, but you're going to use that you're going to continue to use that branding, and obviously your keynote speaking that you do, all of this kind of builds into a nice
yeah, very, very much so. I mean, okay, a lot of speaking I've done has obviously been under the BNI banner, clearly, but more and more I've been doing things under the Unnatural Network or Unnatural Promoter banner. I mean, a good example came, and take the Unnatural Promoter, the one from last year. So what I realized very quickly is when I published the Unnatural Networker was that I didn't really like talking about it either. It's not that I'm just not great at going and networking with people. I don't like shouting about myself. And again, I think there's a lot of people who don't feel comfortable really just saying, look, this is me, I'm not great. And there's lots of strategies you can do. You can read the book and you can check them out. But yeah, what I found was I wanted to find great ways to get myself promoted. So here was something that happened, and it worked out brilliantly to get speaking opportunities, because that's effectively what I want. I want opportunities to be in front of me. That's where I'm in my happy place, and be on a stage speaking. And you know, at the front of a book, you always have the comments from some, you know, people who are maybe not well known, but, you know, credible people in your field and your, you know, the target area that you're focusing on. And I went to a lady called Pip Wilkins. I don't know if any of you know the name. She's the chief executive of the British Franchise Association, and that's a good franchise is a good target market generally. And I said, I'm writing to ask a favour. I've met her a few times. I don't know her well, but I'm writing to ask a favour. Would you do me a little quote? I mean, if you want, I'll write it for you. You can put your name to it, whatever works for you. I'd love to have you featured. She said, with pleasure. She said, send me a couple of the chapters of the book. Did so. She read it and said, right, come to you're speaking at the British Franchise Association conference last November. So, you know, just in terms of those opportunities it gives, it's just a winner in terms of getting where you want to be and getting your book in front of people. And then the way she did it and the way I like to do it as well, there's one thing as an unnatural promoter, the one thing I can't do it is when you go and do a talk and then you stand at the back and flog your books. Oh God, that's just not me. I just can't do it. If someone does it for me, maybe, but I'm just not a fan. But Pip just said, yeah, we'll buy this. I think it was 300 attendees at the conference. Right, we'll buy 300 copies, one for every delegate. And, you know, they build it into the cost of the conference. You know, they can obviously buy them at a cheaper rate because they're buying quantity. I sell 300 books, and then I don't have to stand at the back of the room.
Nice.
Win all round.
Win, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So a book definitely helps get you the opportunities you want. There's no question about it.
I think there's something really lovely about how, you know, people will talk about you if you've got a book, you know, and they find it easier to talk about you, don't they? It's that whole thing of, you know, you get more referrals, you get more introductions, you get more, you know, and you know, as well as that kind of layer of people actually reading the book and understanding something about you and getting to know you and wanting to get to know you better, you've also got that opportunity that you have to kind of to reach out to people that wouldn't otherwise know you. I think something also you said to me at one point, which is really useful, and I think probably other people here on today's lunch may well kind of have this on, they've had this experience or they're thinking about this experience, which is the opportunity when you have a book, as you're doing the book, perhaps when you're asking people for testimonials and things, or, you know, is that something that you found when you would, obviously the Pip Wilkins story is fantastic, but you reached out to people to get comments, and that kind of can be quite a kind of relationship builder. Charlie?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think who I asked for comments from, yeah, definitely. I'm also thinking of the way I wrote this the Unnatural Promoter in particular. I specifically wanted to have case studies of other unnatural promoters. So other people who aren't particularly comfortable about selling themselves and you know, selling the business. And I had 4 or 5 case studies in the book, and each one, yeah, I got to build a relationship with them. So yeah, no, look, in the end, networking is all about relationships. So my focus with how I wrote the books and why I've written them and the audience I'm trying to target, it's all relationship based, because that's my, you know, my approach to how I do my subject, networking in this case. And by the way, the long and short of the Unnatural Promoter is, if you don't like shouting about yourself, well, network effectively, build good relationships with people, and they'll go and promote you for you. Much easier to promote someone else than promote yourself. So yeah, it's all about how the relationships that we build in life can get us where we want to get to. And I'd say there's tons of examples in the Unnatural Promoter, no question about that.
And do you think that it's also helping you as you do more speaking, Do you think, how are you using the book? Are you finding that helpful in terms of, obviously again, you've told us one great story. Are there other ways that you can use the book to help you get speaking bookings?
I think it's more about the reputation that you carry before you. I guess the one thing I do regularly is whenever I'm talking to a prospect, and they're just finding out about me, I'll always just send them a copy of the book, because it's just such a simple thing to do. It's a nice little give, it's a nice little win for them. But even if they go nothing, I mean, there was one situation recently. I was chatting to it's a legal practice. It's not going to work out. I'm definitely not going to be going and do something for them, but I still put a copy of the book in the post to them, because you never know when that's going to come back in the future. And if they find, it's that little give, that little, appreciation, if you like, it leads to something. So no, it's usually about, as I say, it's about the credibility and reputation that goes before you. The fact that you can say publisher of two books, I mean, that just, that's I'm not saying that's all you need. Clearly there has to be some substance behind it, but that is just very powerful to say that. I still find it slightly weird when I hear someone introduce me, say, and Charlie, our next speaker, has published 2 best-selling books, and I'm like, oh, that's me. And I still don't think of myself as having multiple books in my back catalogue, but that is a fact. I now do. So yeah, it's that reputation that goes before you, I think.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Charlie. That's really, really good.